I'm 96 years old, and I've spent 52 years listening to people destroy their marriages in my office. Over 3,000 couples sat across from me. Some of them I saved, most of them I couldn't. And the ones I couldn't save, they weren't doomed by affairs or money problems or incompatibility. They were doomed by 6 patterns so predictable I could spot them in the first session. I have a PhD in clinical psychology from 1954, back when a woman getting a doctorate meant fighting for every inch. I've been published in journals you've never heard of. I've trained therapists who trained therapists. But none of that matters as much as this. I was married for 71 years. My husband Walter died 3 years ago. And in those 71 years, I almost left him once. Packed a suitcase and everything. So when I tell you why marriages die, I'm not speaking from a textbook. I'm speaking from both sides of the desk. I opened my practice in Boston in 1958. I was 30 years old, one of 3 female therapists in the city who specialized in couples. The men didn't take me seriously. The women didn't trust me because I was too young. I had to prove myself with every single case. By 1975, I had seen over 500 couples. By 1990, over 1,500. By the time I retired in 2010, I had lost count. My assistant told me it was somewhere north of 3,000. 3,000 marriages laid open on my couch. 3,000 sets of grievances, betrayals, disappointments, and occasionally, real love buried under years of accumulated damage. But here's what gave me the right to speak about this. In 1976, after 23 years of marriage, I packed a suitcase. I put it by the front door. I was going to leave Walter. We had 2 children. Thomas was 19, Catherine was 16. I had spent 2 decades building a career while raising those children, while managing a household, while Walter worked late and came home tired and looked right through me like I was furniture. I stood in our bedroom holding that suitcase and I thought, I have spent 23 years becoming invisible in my own home. I counsel people on how to save their marriages, and I cannot save my own. That night changed everything. Not because I stayed. Staying is easy. Staying is just inertia. That night changed everything because of what I learned about why I wanted to leave. And that lesson became the foundation of everything I taught for the next 34 years. Let me tell you about the 6 patterns that kill marriages. I've seen them thousands of times. I'm probably going to describe your marriage right now, and that's going to be uncomfortable. But uncomfortable is where change lives. The first pattern is keeping score. I had a couple, Richard and Diane, who came to me in 1983, married 14 years, 2 kids. From the outside, a perfect suburban life. They sat down and within 5 minutes, Diane pulled out a notebook, an actual notebook. She had been keeping track of every time Richard failed her for 3 years. Every forgotten anniversary, every dismissive comment, every time he chose golf over family time. She had dates, she had details, she had evidence. Richard sat there with his mouth open. He said, I didn't know we were on trial. And Diane said, We've been on trial since 1980. You just weren't paying attention. Here's what I told them, and here's what I'm telling you. The moment you start keeping score, you've already decided your partner is your opponent. Marriage is not a courtroom. There is no judge, there is no verdict. There are only 2 people who either figure out how to be on the same team or slowly destroy each other with evidence. Diane and Richard divorced in 1985. The second pattern is weaponizing vulnerability. When your partner tells you something tender, a fear, an insecurity, a wound from childhood, that is sacred information. It is not ammunition. It is not something you get to throw back at them during a fight. I had a man named Gerald, this was 1992, who told his wife Patricia about being bullied as a child. He was small. The other boys called him names. He carried that shame for 50 years. One night, they argued about money, and Patricia looked at him and said, "No wonder nobody respected you. You've always been weak." She told me later she didn't mean it. She was just angry. She wanted to hurt him because she was hurt. I said, "Patricia, do you understand what you did? You took the most vulnerable thing he ever shared with you, and you used it as a weapon. He will never fully trust you again. Ever." They stayed married another 11 years. Gerald died in 2003. But that marriage was over the moment those words left her mouth. They just hadn't filed the paperwork yet. Your partner's vulnerabilities are not weapons. If you use them as weapons, you will win the argument and lose the marriage. The third pattern is prioritizing being right over being kind. This one killed more marriages than affairs did in my practice. I'm not exaggerating. More couples divorced over the need to be right than over infidelity. Because here's what happens. You have an argument about something small. Maybe who said what about the dinner plans. And instead of letting it go, you dig in. You insist on your version. You need them to admit they were wrong and you were right. You need the victory. And you get it. You prove your point. You win. What did you win? You won the right to sleep next to someone who now resents you. You won the right to be technically correct and emotionally alone. I used to ask couples this question. Would you rather be right, or would you rather be married? Most of them said married, and then they kept choosing right anyway, over and over, until there was no marriage left. The fourth pattern is financial secrecy. I cannot tell you how many marriages I watched implode because someone was hiding money. Not always spending it badly, sometimes just hiding it. Secret accounts, secret debts, secret purchases, secret plans. Money is not about money. Money is about trust. When you hide money from your partner, you are telling them, whether you mean to or not, "I don't trust you with our future. I need an escape route. I need a door you don't know about." A woman named Shirley came to me in 1988. Her husband Frank had been secretly funneling money into an account for 7 years. 7 years. Not for another woman, not for gambling. He was saving it because he didn't think Shirley could be trusted with money. He thought he was protecting the family. Shirley said to me, "He's been living a double life for 7 years. How do I know what else he's hiding?" I didn't have an answer for her. Financial secrecy is not just about dollars. It's about the fundamental question, are we actually in this together, or are you keeping your options open? The fifth pattern is letting resentment ferment in silence. Resentment is like mold. It grows in the dark. It grows in the places you don't look at, and by the time you notice it, it's everywhere. I watched so many couples sit on my couch and unload years of grievances their partner had never heard. The partner would sit there stunned. They'd say, "Why didn't you ever tell me this?" And the answer was always some version of, "I didn't want to start a fight. I thought it would blow over. I figured you should have known." You cannot expect your partner to fix problems they don't know exist. Your silence is not keeping the peace. Your silence is building a case. Your silence is growing a garden of resentment that will eventually choke everything else out. If something bothers you, say it. Say it small. Say it early. Say it before it becomes unsayable. The sixth pattern is expecting your partner to read your mind. This one makes me want to scream, and I've been working on my patience for 96 years. He should just know. If I have to tell her, it doesn't count. If he really loved me, he would understand what I need without me having to spell it out. This is nonsense. This is fantasy. This is setting your partner up to fail and then blaming them for the failure you engineered. Your partner is not a mind reader. Your partner is a separate human being with their own thoughts and fears and preoccupations. They cannot know what you need unless you tell them. And telling them is not a failure of love. Telling them is love. Clear communication is the most loving thing you can do. I had a patient, Helen, who was furious with her husband for 15 years because he never brought her flowers. Never once did she tell him she wanted flowers. She just expected him to figure it out. Finally, in my office, she said it out loud. He looked at her and said, "I thought you hated flowers. You always say they're impractical and they just die." 15 years of resentment over something she never said and he never knew. Now let me tell you about that suitcase. April 1976. I was 48 years old. Walter was 51. We had been married 23 years, and I was standing in our bedroom with a suitcase packed, and I was done. Done with feeling invisible. Done with conversations that went nowhere. Done with being the one who held everything together while he got to just show up and be tired. I walked downstairs. I put the suitcase by the door. Walter was in his chair reading the paper. He looked up and saw the suitcase. He didn't say anything. He just looked at it, and then he looked at me. I said, "I can't do this anymore." He put down the paper. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He just asked one question. "What do you need me to understand that I'm not understanding?" I opened my mouth to answer, and I realized I didn't know. I had a list of grievances a mile long, but I didn't know what I actually needed him to understand. I had been so focused on what he was doing wrong that I had never figured out what I wanted him to do right. We sat at that kitchen table until 3 in the morning. I cried. He cried. We said things we should have said years earlier. And somewhere around 2 a.m., I realized something that changed everything. I wasn't running to something. I was running from something. And the thing I was running from wasn't Walter. It was my own fear that I had become someone I didn't recognize. I had lost myself. Not because Walter took me away, but because I had stopped asking for what I needed and then blamed him for not giving it to me. Here's what 52 years of practice and 71 years of marriage taught me. Most marriages don't die from lack of love. They die from lack of curiosity. When you first fell in love, you were curious about everything. What do they think? What do they feel? What happened to them today? You wanted to know them because they were fascinating. Then years pass. You think you know them. You stop asking questions. You start assuming. You fill in the blanks with your own projections instead of their actual truth. And the moment you stop being curious about your partner, you stop seeing them. They become a character in your story instead of the author of their own. That night in 1976, Walter could have defended himself. He could have argued. Instead, he asked a question. He got curious, and that curiosity cracked something open that had been sealed shut for years. After that night, we made a rule. Every time one of us wanted to attack, we asked a question instead. What are you feeling right now that I'm not seeing? What do you need me to understand? Help me understand why this matters to you. Curiosity instead of fury. Questions instead of accusations. It sounds simple. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. If you're watching this and your marriage is in trouble, I want to talk to you directly. Some of you recognized yourself in those 6 patterns. You're keeping score. You're letting resentment build. You've weaponized something your partner told you in trust. You're sitting on years of silence and wondering why they don't understand you. Here's what I know. It's probably not too late. I've seen marriages come back from worse. But it requires you to do something terrifying. It requires you to stop focusing on what your partner is doing wrong and start asking what you need them to understand. Not what they should change, what they need to understand about you. And if you're young and not married yet, or newly married and still in the hopeful stage, please listen to an old woman who has seen more marriages fail than she's seen succeed. The patterns start early. The scorekeeping starts early. The silence starts early. Pay attention now, while the cement is still wet.
Walter died 3 years ago, January 14th, 2022. He was 97. We had been married for 71 years. The night before he passed, I was sitting by his bed in the hospital. He could barely speak by then. I held his hand and I said, "Thank you for staying curious about me." He squeezed my hand, weak, but he squeezed it, and he said, "You were always worth figuring out." That's the whole secret. That's 52 years of professional practice and 71 years of marriage distilled into one sentence. Stay curious. Your partner is always worth figuring out. The moment you think you've figured them out completely, you've stopped seeing them. And people who feel unseen eventually leave, either physically or emotionally. Your marriage isn't dying from lack of love, it's dying from lack of attention. So pay attention. Ask a question today that you haven't asked in years. Find out something new about the person you think you already know. Be curious instead of furious. I'm 96 years old. I've buried the love of my life. And I'm telling you, all that time we had together, the 71 years, the 2 children, the fights, the reconciliations, the quiet Sunday mornings, all of it was built on one simple choice we made over and over again. We stayed curious about each other. You can make that choice too, starting today, starting right now. Go ask your partner a question. Not a question about logistics, not what's for dinner or did you pay the bill. Ask them something real. Ask them what they're worried about. Ask them what they're hoping for. Ask them what they wish you understood better. And then actually listen to the answer. That's all I've got. 96 years of living and 52 years of professional practice comes down to this. Stay curious. It's not complicated. It's just hard. Now go pay attention to the person you love while you still can.